you're listening to this, your normal day is probably someone else's dream. More importantly, it's probably your past self's dream. Hi, welcome to Unearth with Shelly Hughes. I'm Shelly Hughes. In this podcast, we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of growing a profitable, passionate brand. We talk about the wins, losses, and most importantly, lessons learned about what it takes to grow the business of your dreams. And here's the thing, and I hear you, it's easy to hate the hard. Entrepreneurs carry a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility, constant forward motion, right? Because if you're not going forward, it means you're kind of failing. Building a brand is brutal. And that's why most people just never start. It's not for everyone, nor should it be. Just the other day, my mom, just so silly. This is like embarrassing to say, but for months, right? She watches my son in the afternoons, my 1-year-old, and she says, Shelly, you're running out of paper napkins. Shelly, you're running out of paper napkins. For like a month, she's reminding me of this. I'm like, cool, thanks. And just yesterday, or just this week, she said, Shelly, you ran out of paper napkins. I'm like, darn it. She's like, don't worry, I got you some. I'm like, thanks, Mom. And it's almost like I put so much of my adulting into the business that the type B in me comes out so much at home. And she was always very, very type A person. And she's like, Shelly, I used to think we were really similar. And I'm realizing more and more that we are not similar at all. I'm like, oh, you mean I'm more like Dad? And he's just incredibly type B. And she said, yeah, but also you have the drive that I never would have. I would never start a business. I would never work as hard as you do. It's just not worth it to me. And I love that because it's true, it wasn't worth it to her. And that's why most people never start a business, because it's either not worth it or there might be fear involved, of course. But you, who I'm talking to now, you did start the business. You did take over the business, and other people are still dreaming, and now you're in it. The hard is real, but you're still living the life that you always asked for. And gratitude isn't fluffy. It's really, I believe, a leadership practice. And it's hard to remember that, right? When your phone is buzzing and you're going a million miles an hour, it's like, okay, Shelly, I wanted this. I told myself for a decade ago that I wanted this, but it's important to remember that. And the other thing is, a lot of times, at least for me, criticism hits hardest at home. There was one time I remember I was holding it all together. I was criticizing myself and other people were criticizing me, even if it wasn't direct, 100 times that day and that week. Mistakes were happening, pivots were happening, pressure was happening. Like I said, I criticized myself quietly all day long, even though, definitely working on some positive self-talk and, I'm in my journal and people are telling me I'm doing a great job and all this kind of stuff. But then I remember that evening, a small comment cut from my husband a little bit deeper than it should. It was so stupid, right? But I realized that when you're maxed out emotionally, even small things really tip the scale. I mean, you've been through it, I'm sure. And gratitude and grace in those moments really create space for softness and create space for just like realizing when you have to take a break or when it's time to push forward. And I was at the O'Connor Group's P3 Executive Summit last week, and there was a great speaker there. His name is Dyer. He talks about different types of exhaustion. He said there's physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, social, sensory, creative, and spiritual. So there's 7 different types of exhaustion. And a lot of times, just this week, actually, there was like heaviness in my chest and I was feeling so tired, but I wasn't physically tired. And, with everything going on with like family challenges, health challenges going on. And I was mentioning this to Chris and he's like, I think you're feeling emotionally tired, emotionally exhausted. And when you're feeling something, a lot of times, especially with people with really audacious drive, when they're not feeling physically tired, they keep going. Like, okay, I slept 8 hours. I should be fine, right? But yet, like I felt yesterday, there was this like pressure in my chest that like made me just like have to take these deep breaths, right? And I didn't want to go to the event last night. There was an event with the Chamber of Commerce. I didn't want to go there last night, but I went anyway. And it was interesting. I think the social kind of helped my, exhaustion because I am a little bit more of an extrovert than introvert. So I think that helped. But no matter what, I think we have to recognize these different types of exhaustion within us. Even though we asked for this life, right, that people are still dreaming about. And we have to realize that exhaustion comes up in different ways, and they are all treated differently for sure, but they all have to be recognized for what they are. And just because you got 8 hours of sleep the night before doesn't mean that you need to recoup in certain ways. Also, you have to remember, and this isn't me just like putting what you're going through, and sweeping it under the rug, but you prayed for this. That full calendar, you prayed for it. I took a screenshot of my calendar for last 2 days and today, and I sent it to my husband. And I mean, it's all, of course, color coded because my executive assistant is amazing and she helps me with my calendar. But there was literally no break in 3 days. Not a single lunch break. Lunch was scheduled, but it was double booked with something else. It just had to happen, right? And I let it happen with my schedule. But he's like, I don't know what that means, but I think we're going to be having a relaxing weekend. Like, that's for sure. Full calendar, the client calls, the team Slack channel constantly buzzing you prayed for all of it. You wanted all of it. All those things you wanted more than anything, right? But normal doesn't mean easy. It means you're used to the weight a little bit more now. And I think that's where entrepreneurship, the build, is so important. You start small and you build, because if you took someone off the street and put them in your position right now, they would keel over from just not knowing what to do and exhaustion, all that kind of stuff. But, as entrepreneurs, we build this tough skin and we're able to kind of get the punches and take them, at least publicly, right? And deal with the stress in ways that we have to learn about ourselves. And so I journal. To be honest, I haven't done it very much since my second son was born, just because baby in bed doesn't help with, late night journaling or early morning journaling. But I would love to look back. I journal, and if you haven't read Matthew McConaughey's book, please do. He has a great approach to journaling. And I really use journaling as, number one, kind of a historical book of my life, of what I do, my trials, my successes, and everything in between. But I also use it as which I'll get to in a bit, as kind of decoding what I need to do to fix a challenge that I'm running into or a feeling that I have going on. But I would love to look back at, like 5, 7, 8 years ago. I started the company about 5 or 6 years ago, but maybe like 8 years ago, when I was really getting serious about what could this look like for me, and like what I wanted my life to look like, and who I want to be talking to every day, and what projects I want to be working on, because it's probably really freaking similar to what I'm doing right now. And that's pretty cool. That's why you journal, right? That's why I journal. It's to have a vision for your life, write it down, so that most likely it becomes a reality. The sun just came out and it's so gorgeous out right now. And it's fall. Just gratitude all around, guys. I'm just looking at some of my notes because I was journaling about this specifically the other day, and I was like, oh, this has to be a podcast episode. Your life right now, you have to reframe it, right? Your life that might feel chaotic right now, it's the chaos that you once craved, right? And it's chaos that you own. You're the deciding factor of everything going on right now. You can cut all of it off if you want to. So it's the right kind of chaos, maybe, if you can think of it that way. I thought about this the other day too. Everyone has been in traffic before, right? And I really, really hate when I see people just getting so angry when they're in traffic. You can tell they're agitated, they're getting frustrated, they're yelling at the people in front of them. They just get frustrated with everything going on. Sometimes I imagine that person. I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I need to get to work, I'm late. This traffic is holding everything up, right? I have this important meeting to go to. But then you get up to the point to where the reason of the traffic is, and you realize that it was a car accident, and ambulance is there, and fire police are there, and the fire trucks are there. And you kind of realize that you got angry because of a inconvenience when this person's or people's lives possibly have either changed forever or have been terminated, right? Because of an accident. And you kind of rethink, and I hope one would rethink, like, man, yeah, that was a huge inconvenience today, right? But look at what I've experienced if I left only a couple minutes earlier or a couple moments earlier. And it's just taking the gratitude and like the prayer and the compassion and being like, hey, my life could look so differently right now. Let's take gratitude in what is going on currently. Because if you don't do that, really, what do you have? And that's why I pray with my son every night. And in our prayers, we say thanks before we ever ask for anything. We say, thank you for our food today. Thank you for our friends. Thank you for a healthy family. And then my son will be like, can you help me get rid of this cold, right? That he has going on? Can you help me get rid of the sniffles? And it's always talking about gratitude first before you ever ask for anything from anyone, including God, I guess. So, gratitude isn't pretending things are perfect. It's recognizing when things could be worse than choosing really that perspective over pressure. And so some days you're deep in it. There's no finish line in sight. There really isn't. And here's a reminder that you're not buried. You are planted exactly where you own the decision to plant yourself. And, I do have these anchor tools. I have to get back into it, but I journal, right? So when I'm starting to feel stressed, a lot of times this is my exact sequence. I say, this is how I'm feeling. This is why I'm feeling it. It's probably very clear about why I'm feeling it. And very obviously it goes into this is what I have to do about it to make me not feel this way. And I'm very much a planning, like an action person. I want action to be done. So if I'm starting to feel stressed, maybe I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling anxious because this client didn't sign a contract, or because I feel like, we dropped the ball on a certain project or something like that. It's very easy to figure out what I have to do about it, right? So for example, a client recently, we were working on their digital ads, and I kind of I'm feeling anxious because their digital ads, we were tweaking, but honestly, to be completely transparent, it was taking longer than it usually does. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling anxious. The reason I'm feeling anxious is because this project isn't going the way it typically goes. And so what do you have to do about it? I made a meeting with the client. I talked to him about what was going on. He told me about his feelings towards it, which were aligned with mine. And I got my team right on it, and we made an action plan. We made an ultimatum of what this was going to look like and when it was going to look like it. And I really think it strengthened the relationship with the client instead of potentially making it weaker, because this pressure was happening, but it was happening in silence instead of just coming to the forefront. And that's the action I'm talking about, right? I'm feeling this way. This is why I'm feeling it. I'm going to take this action. And even when you just have the plan, that stress maybe doesn't go away completely, but it truly melts away. So yeah, I love my anchor tools, my journal with gratitude. Morning reflection I really like to do, say one win out loud. Every Friday we talk about, everyone goes around and talks about a brag. And so you're not doing all this wrong because it feels hard. It's hard because you're doing it right and you have something worth showing up for. And by the way, if it's not worth it anymore, it's not worth it anymore. But if you feel like it's worth it, it's such a magical thing to feel consistently like you can just show up. And you want to show up even though it's hard. And so thank your past self and your current self. Thank your past self for pushing you to want this in the first place and doing the things you had to do to get you here. And this is messy. An imperfect day is it's challenging sometimes. It was once the goal though. So I challenge you to honor those imperfect days. I hope this was helpful. I hope this resonated with you. If you think that someone would benefit from, this episode, please send it to them. Please rate, review. It really helps us get in front of more ears that needs to hear messages like this. But I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next week.